Hey everyone, welcome to our very first episode of NXG Talks. Yay! What is NXG Talks? Well, we are basically a youth group here in Damansara Utama Methodist Church, or DUMC for short. And NextGen is the youth ministry here in this church. And NXG, well, NXG stands for NextGen. Yeah, I mean, it takes a genius to, discover that. And why did we start this? Well, we wanted a platform where young people could come together and talk about youth-related issues. Not necessarily just Christian youth-related issues, but youth-related issues in general. And you may ask yourself, well, there are dozens of podcasts out there that talk about youth-related issues. So what is the difference with NXG Talks? Well, basically, we are coming in from a Malaysian, Asian perspective. If you're a Malaysian Christian, if you're a Malaysian youth, well, we hope that this would reach out to you and you would be engaged and, this would be relevant for you. I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Terry and I am the youth pastor here in DUMC and I'll be your host for today's episode. Now, every episode will have a host and one or two guests, and I'm really glad that today we have our very first guest, all right, with us. And yeah, why don't you just introduce yourself?
Thank you for having me. My name is William, I'm a university student, and I'm studying computer science.
Great. William, were you a Christian all your life?
Yes.
Were you born into this church and all those?
I was.
Okay.
My parents are Christians, grew up Christian, yeah.
So, first icebreaker question for you.
Okay.
What is the most cringy thing that church people do?
I can think about it from the point of CG. And for newcomers, when they introduce the newcomers, everyone in the group has just to say hi, and you just have to stand there, and it can get quite cringeworthy.
It's an introvert's nightmare.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
I wouldn't know how that feels. I love the attention. I absolutely loved it when people were like, oh, Terry. But I can totally understand from an introverted point of view that can get pretty tough. What about, I've asked you about the cringiest. What about, what do you think about, what's a good practice that the church does on like a weekly?
I would have to say meeting up, actually. It's quite underrated, but the sense of community in this church I feel is really strong. And I really like that, the sense that we go out for events, sports, we have CG, in and out of church. It's very tight-knitted, and that's what I really enjoy. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about your family, because I guess we can call you a second generation Christian.
Yeah.
Do you know how your parents became Christians? Did they ever talk about that with you?
My dad's parents were Christians.
So you're third generation?
Yeah, I would technically say, I'm third generation. So my dad obviously came to know Christ through his parents. And for my mom, came to know Christ, I think, through my dad, if I'm not wrong.
Oh.
If I'm not wrong, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess, we can safely say that you from the moment you were born, and you have a sister, is that right?
I do.
Right, so the both of you, I guess, ever since you were kids or babies, like you were inculcated into the whole church culture and all of those things. But did you ever experience any time growing up in your life where you were like, Mom, Dad, why in the world are we doing this?
I think I have, yeah. I don't think I've really voiced that to my parents, but it's something that I've kind of been internalizing. As I grow up, I'm just finding new perspectives, meeting new people, talking with new people, especially now that I'm in university. You get exposed to so many new ideas. So I think I'm kind of figuring that out for myself and questioning things as I go along. Yeah.
That's interesting, because I'm not a second generation Christian. My parents are not Christians. I came to Christ very late in my teenage life. And I've always like wondered, or like I've known a lot of like second, third, fourth generation Christians where they grew up pretty much in their childhood not understanding why they did certain things.
Yeah.
You know, like family devotion. Do you guys ever do that growing up?
We did that growing up.
Did you enjoy it?
I did enjoy it.
You did enjoy it?
Yeah, fortunately.
And like, you know, like, but it's great that you enjoyed your family devo time. But I had friends who were like, man, it's like they were forced, and literally like the parents would hold a cane at the table, you are not allowed to leave this table until you finish Mark chapter 4, you know, and those things. Like, did you ever experience anything of that sort where it was kind of like a religious thing to you growing up as a family? Did your parents ever, you know, force that over?
I wouldn't say force, because it was never forced upon us to do a certain thing. But I guess growing up, the Christian values that my parents held was kind of built into everything that we did. So it's something that we're not so conscious about, that we're thinking this is a religious thing that we're doing, but it's just something that's a part of our everyday lives.
Give me an example of that.
So praying, asking each other for like prayers, what can we pray for you? Thanksgiving for food. We sometimes do like devotions and nightly like worships at home. We would sing songs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's something that was never forced, but we just enjoyed doing. Yeah.
Would there be anything that you would actually have changed about your journey? And why don't you just share about the time when, you know, Christianity or God became like your God? You know what I mean? Like not just, you know, your parents were Christians and they passed on all that to you. But was there a point, William, where you made that decision for yourself? Like you encountered God for yourself, for real?
I can't place a specific date on it, but I would have to say it was in my early high school years. Because growing up until that point, it was always you just do as you're told. You just follow, kind of go to church, and you're like, oh, I have friends here and there, and everything seems fun. But I think the purpose behind and the meaning behind things, I only started to question later on in my early teenage years. And I think that was when I questioned a lot and talked with friends, family, and discovered that, you know, this is something that I want to believe myself, not just something that was kind of passed down to me. So yeah, I would place it there. Yeah.
I'm curious because I guess, like I said, I never got to experience this. But you mentioned just now earlier that in university, that's when you were exposed to different ideologies and probably different beliefs. You know, especially in this generation where identity is such a huge thing. Like, you know, there's like a whole movement against organized religious organizations. And all those kind of things. Like, did you ever feel like there was a safe space at home for you to sit down and have a conversation with your parents about those kind of things?
Of course. I definitely felt safe, and one thing that I'm really happy and grateful for is that my parents really made it very welcoming to ask questions about anything, to talk to them about anything. So in that regard, I would say I'm very blessed to have that safe space that not many people might have. So yeah, I'm really grateful for that.
Okay, besides your parents and possibly your sister, like outside of your family, like did you have anyone that you could go to as a Christian to also have these sort of conversations?
I would say my CG friends and my CG leader, and that's why I think community is so important in NextGen and also in the church, because you know, when you have cell group, you have people around your age who's facing the same things you do. So they might have different viewpoints, but coming together, I feel that you can really build your faith together, and that's something I really value. And it was really good to have. So yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think, okay, because speaking from a first generation Christian.
What was it like for you?
Well, it was my CG, it was my leaders, it was my youth leaders, it was my pastor. My pastor and his wife were my spiritual parents. And many a time when I was struggling with my faith or I had questions of my faith, they were the people that I could go to, that I could seek out.
Right.
And I just think it's just so important, right? William, like, we're assuming that there are people watching this that are second, third, fourth, fifth, maybe even sixth generation Christians as well. And I think it's the elephant in the room. Well, it's not really it's quite obvious that there are a lot of second, third, fourth, fifth generation Christians that they're being labeled as like not as passionate, as their parents. And
I think it's due to like the hand-me-down kind of culture that I think it's the viewpoint that was built around it, I would say. Yeah.
What would be one piece of advice that you would give to, if there is like someone like kind of going through it, it's like, wow, this faith is actually not my own. It's like my parents' faith, or like what would you recommend, or what would you like advise them to do?
Firstly, I want to say that it's okay to question. And I think questioning is when we can grow spiritually ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think not being afraid to ask these questions is one thing. Finding that community of friends that we were talking about.
Yeah.
But it's okay to question. Don't be afraid to, I would say. That's the advice. And to learn more, so you know for yourself, you can figure out whether this is something you really want to believe. And I think one question that's always asked a lot is all of this true?
Yep.
And I think that's a really important question to ask and also to answer, during a CG. So, yeah, I would recommend people to stay curious. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great piece of advice, especially in today's day and age, where there's just a million things out there that they can, kind of search for answers in. And I guess the danger, if there isn't a community, or there isn't like a someone to bounce off whatever you've read or learned.
Yeah.
Like there's that danger of like kind of straying. Like I have a friend who's like super into ChatGPT, and he's super into all this like AI stuff, and he was just quite free that day, and he just typed in some theological questions,
Right.
and ChatGPT was like giving all sorts of answers. And he was like, "Oh, interesting! I've never read this before," and he just started going down the rabbit hole. And by the end of it, he started to think, "Oh my goodness! Like, I'm questioning my understanding of faith even right now, because there's just there's so many articles and so many resources out there that may contradict each other even."
Yeah.
And I think it was right at that point where it's so important if you are seeking, and if you're questioning, if you're asking questions about your faith, to not do it alone.
Oh yeah.
To do it in community, to find people that you are able to bounce off those things with. Yeah.
Do you think relying on ChatGPT and just asking it questions, especially about theology and religion, would you recommend people doing that?
I would say, okay, ChatGPT, at the end of the day, it's artificial intelligence,
Yes.
and how it generates replies and answers is purely based on whatever is in the database
Yeah.
that it can recall. It would, this kind of like Black Mirror stuff going on already. Like it kind of like if you sign in, you create an account. What it does is that it checks your social media history. It checks your history of your search. What you've searched for before, and then it generates a reply that it thinks is what you want to hear or what you want to get. So I would say, it's a very useful tool. Just like when Google came out, and yes, I existed before Google, before internet. I remember when Google came out also, it was like a huge thing because people was like, whoa, I can
Just
like
ask
search
anything.
anything.
Yeah.
And right now there are people like writing their thesis, doing their assignments purely on ChatGPT, which I don't think you do,
Yeah.
right?
No, I
Okay,
don't.
great. You're on record saying that you don't.
Yeah.
So if you're his lecturer, he's not cheating. So I think it's a useful tool, but it should not be their go-to. It should not be their only means and their only platform for like finding out, especially like theological-based questions or like Bible-based study of the Word. I always feel like the best way is to do it with someone. As you pray together and you study the Word together and you discuss and you allow questions to be asked. Man, I think that's just amazing.
I agree.
Yeah. So how about you, William? I mean, you've asked me if ChatGPT is a good way for someone to get answers from. But yeah, what do you think? Like, would you rather you can just sit in your room and just like type out your questions in ChatGPT instead of like texting your CG leader or your CG friends? But yeah, how has having a community like kind of helped you?
I would have to say flat out, don't recommend you just use ChatGPT to ask all these questions. I think, especially for me, I really value the connection that I have with my community, my CG, and I do recommend people to do that as well. So, as you mentioned, ChatGPT is really helpful, really useful, but at the end of the day, it's artificial. You don't get the interpersonal relationship you get with your friends, your CG members, and I think that having that sense of relatability with them, your friends having real life experiences, or they might be even going through the same issues and same situations you have, I think that's a lot more valuable. And I have used ChatGPT before, and it's kind of eerie how you're talking to something, but that something's not sentient, and there's something a bit eerie about that. So I wouldn't go to that extent.
Yeah, but I think that's the point. That's the the real point today. That in today's generation, if there's something that you need to understand and value, is that human interaction.
Yeah.
To not fear, disagreeing, with someone, because I think through that, and I think through conversations, that can help build each other.
Yes,
Which
I agree with that.
You really can't get that
Anywhere else.
using a machine.
Yeah.
If ChatGPT's listening in.
One day.
All right, look, I think I'm just going to ask one more question before we wrap up our very first episode.
Yeah.
But before I ask that question, look, if you are watching this, we are very new at this, and we are very open to suggestions. So please do, type out your suggestions or questions in the comment section. And if you would like to see more, if you're interested in, checking out what we're doing here in NXG Talks, do like and subscribe. And even if you have a better name suggestion than NXG Talks, type it out in the chat as well. We are super open to your suggestions. So, William, I think to end today's episode, what is one thing that you would like to encourage Christian youths today in their spiritual journey, be it first generation Christian, second, third, fourth, fifth, whatever? What is the one thing that you would like to encourage them?
We talked just now about questioning, and that's okay. And yeah, that's something that I would recommend people to do, and that's advice I would give. But also, in terms of building your faith, I would say don't lose that community, because the community you're with are also people that you're accountable with, and that can, if they see you, maybe you've not attended CG, not attended church a couple of times, they can check up on you, what's going on. But I feel that it's a lot harder to lose the faith. It's a lot harder to slip away when you have a really strong community in church. So I would say don't lose that community.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Like we have a member of our team, and shout out to Phoebe. who did some research, prior to this, and it's quite interesting that there was a survey by Lifeway Research done. This was in 2017, and it was done in America. There isn't one that's being, done here in Malaysia yet. But hey, Lifeway, if
we could do it.
Yeah, why not do one in Malaysia or in Asia? And in their survey, one of the main reasons for why was there an increase in dropout rate of young Christians from churches, one of the top reasons was actually what you mentioned. What you mentioned was a lack of community and belonging.
Yeah.
And
That's
I do feel that it is so important to find that community and belonging. So, if you are listening to this and if you're watching this, we want to encourage you, reach out to someone. If you were disillusioned by church before this, don't lose hope. Reach out to someone from your church community, or even write into us. If you want to chat as well. Find a community, find a place where you can make friends and you can have this sort of dialogues with, and you can encourage and support each other. Yeah. So thank you so much, William, for
Thank you
this.
for having me.
Yeah, and thank you so much for watching. Until the next one, God bless you.